Hey everybody, this is Gabriel from BitBox. Thanks for joining us. We're going to do a live coding session for about an hour. Super grateful to the Bitcoin Cash Fund for facilitating this and to Monica for monitoring the stream. Let me know if everything is good. I'm just going to start. And actually, Monica, can you paste me in the YouTube link channel? I'd kind of like to have that open in case I want to chat with people if people are asking questions. But hey everybody, what's up? This is Gabriel. I'm going to move pretty quickly because there is a lot of ground to cover and I don't think we're going to get through everything, so I just want to kind of get the ball moving. So, who am I? I'm Gabriel Cardona. I'm the creator of BitBox. I'm based out of San Francisco. I've been working on BitBox for about 3 months now. And in 3 months, it has proven to be pretty successful. We've now had over 25,000 downloads from 81 countries. And we have an incredibly active community of people in a chat room and lots of interest. So to me, it's very clear that people all around the world want Bitcoin Cash, and people all around the world want developer tools, which will enable them to create apps. Okay, so looks like everything is good. I'm just going to start moving forward. Real quick, just sort of the state of the ecosystem. BitBox is growing very quickly, and the ecosystem is very healthy. So far, we have BitBox CLI, which is our command line utility, which is also a JavaScript API for client and server applications. We recently launched proxy.bitbox.earth, and this is a remote proxy to get around CORS issues, and this works with our BitBox proxy local remote CORS daemon, depending if you want to handle it with localhost or a remote instance. But the point being, we recently launched the ability for developers to have a reverse proxy to get around CORS issues. We launched market.bitbox.earth, and this is a place where we're going to aggregate applications built in Bitcoin Cash and BitBox, help surface them, bring attention to them, and ultimately help developers monetize them. We've started on cloud.bitbox.earth. This can be blockchain as a service, and the first bit of this we've rolled out is REST, which is rest.bitbox.earth, and this is the entire Bitcoin Cash RPC over HTTP. And I'll brush over all this a little bit more, but I just want to really quickly go over all that. So I really think I just want to start and checking out some code. I think there's so much to go over, and we can deep dive on stuff later. I'm just going to give a super high level right now, and then ultimately we're going to build a little hello world type app. But for now, let's just get started. So I'm going to open up my browser. This is my first time doing this kind of web stream, so if I don't have the correct thing streaming that I'm talking about, somebody ping me and let me know. But so you should be able to see my Chrome browser right now. And you'll see, obviously it landed on our bitbox.earth domain, www. This has all of our documentation. If you're getting started or if you're checking out BitBox, any single snippet of code you see anywhere on this site, you should be able to either copy and paste into the console or use in your code and it will work. So everything here is incredibly well documented, and this would be a good place to start. Cloud.bitbox.earth, this is what I had mentioned. We're doing Digitalocean meets Heroku for Bitcoin Cash. So you'll be able to spin up and down full Bitcoin Cash nodes from a GUI or over HTTP. There will be an entire ecosystem of add-ons built with BitBox to help you take your app to the next level. There will be deploying and provisioning of instances, etc. Here is REST, which is the first active part of that. So this is available now. Anybody can use this. If you go to rest.bitbox.earth, so this is the entire Bitcoin Cash JSON RPC over HTTP. And real quick, a couple of things which I always found slightly awkward about the Bitcoin Cash or the Bitcoin RPC because it's legacy. Three things in particular. Number one, all of the HTTP verbs are posts, even when the method is called something like get best block hash. It accepts only a post. Number two, all of the method names are not camel case, they're not kebab case, they're not underscore case, they are no case at all. So it's get best block hash, all lowercase, one word, very, very awkward on your eyes. And then finally, they accept one argument, which is an ordered array of like the actual arguments. So slightly awkward. So this is what we're doing here is addressing that with a REST layer. So there's three things that you're going to see here. Number one, just basically get best block hash. It's camel case, much easier on the eyes. More importantly, you can see that we're using GET request where it seems appropriate. Anytime you're reading from the chain, we're going to use an HTTP GET verb. And anytime you're writing to the chain, anytime you're doing something that would update the chain or post something to the chain, you want to use a post method. So there's a little bit of subtlety there with regards to REST. No puts or deletes, but way more subtle than even all posts. And then finally, you can see for arguments which are required. So for example, if we run this previous one, get best block hash, we can click try it out. You can see that it does an actual curl with a GET request to this URL, and it returns this bit of data. You can even see if you copy this URL and put it into your browser and do a GET request, you'll get back the same value. So this is in fact hitting it. You can look up here at the URL v1/blockchain. So this is live right now. Let's say you had an iPhone app and you needed to know the best block hash. You can use this API today. So to go to my previous point, we copy the best block hash, then we go to the next API call. It has a single required parameter, which you can see as part of the URL. So if I say try this out and I paste in that hash, you can see that the URL it generated, the hash is part of the URL, and then the optional parameters, in this particular case verbose equals true or false, a boolean, those are query string parameters. So there's multiple big wins here. Number one, if you are writing an app, you're most likely talking to some type of full node, and you should be doing it over a REST interface because modern app architectures have a client, which is either native or web, and a user interacts with it. It sends HTTP requests to some type of cloud service that returns data. That is very common across the rest of the industry. We need that in this industry, and now we have it. It's called REST by BitBox, and you can use it today. So this is ready to roll, and this is the first step in our BitBox Cloud initiative, which is going to be blockchain as a service. Okay, next, BitBox Market. So these are things which are today, in fact, built with BitBox. And we hope to aggregate other people's work here. We hope to service it and bring attention to it. We know that there is ultimately a way to help people monetize their apps here, either by selling them or micropayments, tips, in-apps purchases, something like that. Huge, huge, huge opportunity to create the Bitcoin Cash marketplace around applications built with Bitcoin Cash and BitBox. Oh, so I'm hearing it's blurry. Hold on one second. I apologize, guys, if it's still. Let me know if that's the case. Anybody else? And yeah, I'm just going to be going off. She says maybe the feed because. Yeah, let me know if that's the case. Anybody else? Sorry. It looks, for what it's worth, it looks okay on my screen, Monica. Maybe it's your screen or something. Just keep paying attention and let me know if it's bad and we can revisit it. For what it's worth, the YouTube stream looks okay to me. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to move forward and let me know if it's bad. Yeah. Anybody else who is watching? I see 5 people watching right now. You guys rule. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Super, super grateful. Anybody in the future who makes their way back to this video, thank you so much. Incredibly grateful. We have a very active chat room in the Bitcoin Cash Funds Discord channel at ambassador.cash, the BitBox channel. Come join us. Okay, so back to the flow here. So anyway, this is our BitBox market. We're going to be able to show other people's apps here and ultimately provide a way for them to get attention and to monetize them. Okay, so that's that. And then here, as I mentioned, is proxy.bitbox.earth. And this is a reverse proxy that you can use to get around CORS issues. Anybody who has ever created a single page web app knows that when you're trying to do HTTP requests or AJAX requests, you will get a CORS error. And so you can use reverse proxies. We have BitBox proxy, which is a localhost port 1337 proxy, or we have proxy.bitbox.earth, which you can use. Currently, I rate limit you to 50 requests every 3 minutes. However, if you have a cool Bitcoin Cash app or a cool BitBox app and you need more than that, hit me up and I can easily whitelist your domain. So that is a general overview of kind of like the state of BitBox. Now I want to kind of dive in and get a sense of sort of what you can build with BitBox. So first off, I'm going to my DigitalOcean page. You can see I have the droplet that we use for our public full node for our chat room. And I'm going to create a new one real quick. So I'm just going to literally create this from scratch as if you were a developer. So for what it's worth, this UX you see right here, where you choose an Ubuntu instance and you tell what size you want to be and where you want it to be and add your public keys, etc. This is the exact UX we're building for BitBox, BitBox Cloud. So you'll be able to come to a GUI, you'll be able to say, I would like an ABC node, and then fire it up. You would say, I would like a XT node or a Bitcoin Unlimited node. Whatever flavor you would like of Bitcoin Cash full node, you'll be able to spin it up and down. So you can see that I'm spinning up a fresh instance right here, right now. So it's going to give me an IP address after 1 second or so. And then they'll still be provisioning that. Let me switch over now to my terminal. So, okay, you can see that. Got it. So, I'm going to actually SSH in as root, and I'm just going to do this. Anybody who is sane and has ever done this in any meaningful way is going to know that you would probably create a user, you would probably create a group, you would probably not SSH in as root, you would probably not even configure this machine the way I'm about to do it by copying and pasting in commands. You would use some type of Docker container or something like that, but for this particular instance, I literally just wanted to show you, like, this is me spinning up an Ubuntu instance from scratch, quickly configuring it, and then running BitBox. So some things I always do anytime I create a new instance is I update everything. Obviously what this does is it just brings everything up to the latest version. So whenever you install Ubuntu, it may have something version 13.1. The latest may be 13.4. So if you run that, it's going to bring everything up in the system to that. After that, you run upgrade, and what this will do is take everything to the latest and greatest. So instead of 13.4, it's now on 14.1 or something like that. And then after that, I will often reboot a system, simply because I just updated and upgraded, and so it's kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of good to restart it in case there are any system services or daemons or anything like that which need to be restarted. Sometimes after you reboot, it takes maybe 30 seconds or so in order to be able to SSH back in. So I'll try this a few times, and then when it works, we'll continue. There we go. So after this, I'm just going to do some general things that I like to do because we're going to be hacking on this machine for a minute. The first one is I get my .vimrc file from GitHub. I'm a Vim user, and I have been for many years, and so vimrc is critical as soon as I SSH into any machine. Next, I just want to install some things I need, like Python 2.7, Build Essential for some build tools, and then ZSH, because I actually prefer the experience of OhmyZSH to Bash. Of course, to each their own, but I'm going to go ahead and set that up so you can get a sense of what it's actually like to see my workflow. After we get these things installed, it'll take 1 second. I want to create a symlink to our Python install, and then I'm going to install NVM, and what NVM is the node version manager, and it allows you to install different versions of Node.js and NVM, or I'm sorry, NPM, the node package manager. So in here I'm installing Node 940, and you can see now it's going to give me Node 940, and it's going to give me NPM 5.6, I believe. Yeah, so I think the latest and greatest with regards to Node.js is like 10 or maybe even 11. This is what I've been developing on. I'd like to get it on the latest and greatest. If you're using a Linux or a Mac OS operating system, you can install Node.js with NVM like I just did, which is my preferred way. If you're using Windows, you can use the official installer from the nodejs.org website. So now we have everything installed. There's one last thing. I just want to install OhmyZSH and change my shell. So there we go. This to me is superior. OhmyZSH just has better scripting, but more importantly, it does completion, and it does way better history. So if you have a path that's like foo-bar, you can say f-b and hit tab, and it'll auto-complete. If you have done a command in the past, you can type the first couple characters and then hit the up arrow on your keyboard, and it'll start cycling through your history, but they'll be filtered by alphabetical, it'll be filtered by those letters. If you've ever spent 1 trillion hours in Bash, I assure you ZSH is just superior. So anyway, that's that. And finally, we're there now, so I'm just going to go ahead and install BitBox Cli. So BitBox Cli is our command line interface. It has a command line utility for doing several things, which I'll demo here shortly, and it also has a JavaScript API. So there's multiple ways you can install this. Real quick, you see this permission denied. This won't matter for the sake of this demo, but this just happened a couple days ago. I was basically trying to decouple the package JSON file from Node.js, and I was using polyfill libraries, and that got introduced there. I'm not seeing it on macOS for what it's worth, but have to address that at a later moment. But anyway, so that installed BitBox, and if you say BitBox version, you'll now see that it has 0.7.15, and that's the latest and greatest. And before I even show you anything that it does, I just wanted to actually clone the repo, cd into it, npm install and npm test. Give that 1 second. It's going to need to install the dependencies that we build BitBox with, and then it's going to run the test suite. And I just wanted to do this to demonstrate that there are over 1,400 passing tests on BitBox Cli. Anytime we add new functionality to it, we add tests. It's very, very important. That way, if we ever make any changes in the future, we're super confident that we didn't break anything. But I just wanted to stress that and visually show, it's about to run the test suite right now. I just wanted to visually show it running the test suite of 1,400 tests so you get a sense of exactly what I'm saying. So here we go. So there you go, 1,480 passing tests, 0 failing tests, and you can see down here we're using Istanbul and NYC for test coverage, and it's telling us we got about an 81%. So not perfect, but pretty good. It shows that we definitely care about an incredibly high quality code base. Anytime we add functionality, we add tests. Our intention is to get that as close to 100% as possible by the time we get to a v1.0. So just so you know, tests and high quality code are at the core of what BitBox is all about. So that's that. I just wanted to give a sense of that. So now let's actually dig into some code. I know that's been a long time. We have BitBox installed. So BitBox comes with a couple command line utilities, and I want to just demo a couple of them real quick. So one of them that is convenient is BitBox Paper. So if you run BitBox Paper, you can see it says creating English cache adder paper wallet. And because I'm on a remote system, I can't actually open this, so it's not going to quite pack the punch I would like it to. But basically, that generates this HTML file, which has 2 QR codes. You know, this is a paper wallet, what you're looking at. What I want to show you is it does the encoding in whichever flag you pass in, cache adder by default, and it does English by default as a language, but you can change that. So if you say BitBox Paper -- encoding equals legacy, for example, you can see it says creating English legacy paper wallet. And then if I open that paper wallet, you can see down here the encoding of the addresses in legacy and not cache adder. You can do the same thing with language Korean. So it'll say creating Korean legacy paper wallet. So same thing, if you open it, you can see the encoding is legacy and that the mnemonic is in Korean. We can create mnemonics in 8 different languages: English, Spanish, French, Italian, Chinese simplified, Chinese traditional, Korean, and Japanese. And I'll show you how that works in a minute. So that's one thing BitBox launches with, is the paper wallet generator. Another thing it has is BitBox Proxy, which if you fire up will create a localhost remote proxy, or it's local, it's not remote, I should say. It will create a local proxy on your local machine that you can post or get your request to get around CORS errors. So this works with proxy.bitbox.earth to be the solution that you need to ultimately get around CORS issues. So there is that. And then let me check my notes real quick, see what I wanted to cover. BitBox Proxy, BitBox Console. Okay, cool. So now I use BitBox New. So this is also very, very convenient. You want to give it a name, my app. Sorry. I'm getting lag, I apologize. And then you want to, if you don't do that at all, if you don't do anything, just BitBox New, you can see it creates a my app directory. It creates in that directory, it creates a source, a tests, and a stub BitBox.js file. Now, if we remove recursive force my app and then do another one where we pass in framework equals node, you can see, sorry, hold on 1 second. 1 minute. Oh yes, of course, I apologize. I was passing that on flag. Duh. Apologies, dude. Missing name. Okay, let's clear the screen so you guys aren't confused. I apologize. So yes, if you run BitBox new and you pass in a name, my app, and then you pass in Scaffold, that's the flag. You can pass in a framework. We currently have scaffolds to bootstrap Bitcoin Cash apps, basic BIP44 wallets in Node.js, Angular, React, Vue.js, and Next.js. Next.js is like server-side rendered React. It's pretty cool. I have bounties out, $50 bounties out to create scaffolds in native iOS and native Android. If anybody out there is a developer on either of those frameworks and you have that workflow set up, I'm like positive you could do this in 20 or 30 minutes, if not less. I'll pay for your time. Please come and sync with me. Recently, we started to work on a scaffold in React Native, which is an incredibly cool environment that allows you to write applications with the React syntax, but then have it output native apps in, it'll do Ubuntu, Windows, macOS, iOS, Android, and Tizen, that I believe. And I believe it can even spit out web apps. I was having trouble because its internal packaging library is called Haste, and it wasn't playing well with what I had already written with Node.js, so I had to step back from that project for now, but in theory we'll also have a scaffold there as well. So you can see that now we have an app called My App. If we go into it, you can see that it basically has a BitBox.js file, which we're going to look into, and then it has an index.js file. So this is the Node.js scaffold, and this one's relatively simple, but let's explore a couple of these things real quick. So BitBox Console, which we are about to explore momentarily, and which is an incredibly useful tool, is able to connect to remote nodes. Whenever you first fire it up, it will send requests to your local running GUI, which we will also cover in one moment. But if you would like to send requests to an actual full node, like you have a real node running out there, you open this BitBox.js file and you can add objects to this network object. So for example, if I were to add a production object, and I were to change, put an IP address here and then a user password, etc., and then I save that. If I run bitbox console dash environment production, sorry, did I spell it wrong? Apologies. So I'm now connected to a BitBox console, and any commands here that I were to run would be sent to a full node. But before I do that, let me give you a sense of what this scaffold offers. So the first thing we want to do is say install and npm start. So this is going to go and fetch the dependencies from npm. One of them is going to be bitbox cli, which it's going to have to install. So give that 1 second. And then when that's done, that's going to fire up this very basic BIP44 wallet. You can see it's here at the bottom. So if I don't install, run it again, run it again, run it again, you can see that each time I run it, it creates, this time was an Italian mnemonic, this time was a Spanish mnemonic, Italian again up here, English. So it's going to randomly pick one of the 8 languages that we can do. Here is another English, and it's going to create a mnemonic, and then it's going to create a root seed, master hdnode. It's going to then create a BIP44 account, so it's got master, hardened 44, hardened 145, hardened 0, so this is the first account, and then it's going to loop and do create 10 external change addresses, so you have 0 for external, and then 0 through 9 for the external change addresses. And then it creates a one-to-one pay-to-pub key hash transaction and builds it and generates the raw hex. If you were to post that raw hex to an actual full node, of course, it would not send any money to anybody because none of these addresses are able to, this mnemonic is unable to sign for any actual Satoshis on the blockchain. But the point being, this is a very, very basic BIP44 wallet, but this is everything you need to get started. And we have this exact same scaffold in React and Angular and Node, obviously, and Vue and Next.js. That's what as I was saying. So this is something to be aware of. But now let's actually open up a BitBox console. Actually, let's clear this real quick so it's not noisy. BitBox console. Let's get a sense of just actually kind of start pasting in some code and seeing what's happened. So BitBox console is a Node REPL. Node is very modular. It follows the Unix philosophy of having a library which are very modular and do one thing and one thing very well and have a standard input and a standard output, which allow developers to basically build applications very quickly. Well, obviously Node.js follows that same philosophy, and all of the different components of Node.js can be required and used in your own apps. So if you're at the command line and you type in Node and hit enter, it opens a Node console where you can run JavaScript commands and Node API commands. Well, inside of BitBox, I was able to require that same module and extend it with a single property, the BitBox object. And so whenever you fire up BitBox console, you have not only a full Node.js JavaScript REPL, which is outrageously useful, but you also have the entire BitBox API, and you have the entire Bitcoin Cash JSON RPC API. So let me give you a sense of what that means. If you type in bitbox dot, you'll see it gives you all of these classes, and these are all of the, so if I say bitbox mnemonic generate 256, you can see it'll generate me a 256-bit English mnemonic, right? So that's how that's done. So just to give you a sense of some things you can do, if you, I got a couple code samples here I'm just going to paste in. If you've got like an array, let's say we got this array, and it has all the different languages that BitBox supports. So BitBox supports English and Chinese simplified, traditional, Korean, Japanese, French, Italian, and Spanish. And then if you just create a loop, I'll do it one line at a time. So create a loop where you're going to loop 50 times. Each time you do it, grab one of the random languages, and then create a mnemonic, 128-bit mnemonic in that language, and log it to the console. Boom. So you can see that real quickly we just looped 50 times and created 50 different random mnemonics. We have them in English and Spanish and Japanese and Italian. That's just to give you sort of a sense of like any of our APIs you can paste in here and they work. Another one I thought might be fun to demo is, so you can create a full hdnode from an xpriv. So hdnode is an incredibly useful class. We'll go over it really quickly in a second. And then you can do the same kind of things. So loop over, derive its child node, right? So this would be sort of like along the BIP32 HD wallet flow. hdnode has derive path, which takes as its first arg the node you're deriving the children from, and then its second arg is a HD path. There's hdnode.derive, which derives a unhardened child, and then hdnode.derive hardened, which derives a hardened child. So there's a pretty good suite of API there to explore the entire BIP32 hdnode space. We have BIP39 mnemonics, and then we have BIP44 semantics across all of the stuff we build. So anyway, once we create the node, I just want to show you some cool things you can do. You can get the cache address, you can get the legacy address, you can get the private key in wallet import format, you can get the extended private key, xpriv, you can get the extended public key, and now just adding a little console log there so that we can see when I do this. So real quick, we just 50 times looped over, created 50, derived 50 children in the BIP32 semantic way. From that first master node, we created each one of their cache adder, legacy, private key and wallet import format, the extended private key, and the extended public key. So again, that is just sort of to give you a little sense of that you can copy and paste things in there. Okay, so things are moving very quick. I'm going to go fast. We're going to have to come back and deep dive on these things later. I want to really quick demo the BitBox GUI. So you should be able to see this now. So what's up with the BitBox GUI is if you're a developer and you want to create an app today, you write some code, you want to test it. In order to do that, you need to fire up a remote full node, which costs money, and you need to let it sync. So the barrier to entry is time and money, and just actual network requests to a full node. If you want to see your transaction get into a block or just determine what happens later on, you have to actually wait the time. So BitBox GUI solves several problems. Number one, when you fire it up, it is a local full node. It only consists of transactions and blocks which you create. You can mine blocks on a click of a button. You can set it up to auto mine every time you create a transaction. It accepts incoming HTTP requests for 100% of the JSON RPC over port A332. So in theory, when you're creating your app, for example, if you fire up BitBox console, whenever you send a command, it's going to send to this GUI unless you specify another environment. So that's one thing it does that's worth noting. A couple other things it does. So as you can see, when it fires up, it creates a BIP44 wallet. And BIP44 is just semantics around the HD path, which in HD wallets. So the derivation path, I should say. So you have a master key, or master seed, master node, I'm sorry. You then have the 44 hardened child. So 40, it's actually 45th because it's 0 indexed, but it's 44 to imply that, hey, this is a BIP44 wallet. And the problem this was solving was when you create an HD wallet, each node can have 4 billion children, 2 billion hardened and 2 billion not hardened. So you can end up with these insane paths. So it was hard for wallets to interoperate. So in order for them to do that, somebody came up with this convention where, hey, if we make the first child 44 hardened, that implies that we're following the standard. The next one will be the coin. In this particular case, it's 145 hardened. That's Bitcoin Cash's coin. And then the next one are accounts. In this particular case, it's the index that I'm looping through. I create 10 by default. The next is internal or external. So imagine you want to share an address with somebody to send you money. Well, that's an external address. But imagine you're creating a transaction and you need to give yourself change. Well, that's an internal address, slightly different meanings. So 0 or 1. And then finally, it's just the address index. So every time you fire it up, it automatically creates a 128-bit mnemonic in English. It creates 10 accounts. It generates the first, it derives the first external change account address for each account. It sets one as the Coinbase. You can see that it will generate the legacy address, the private key, the xpriv, and the xpub for each one of these. You can see that every time I mine, it increments the transaction count, it increments this address, it increments the balance because the 12.5 Bitcoin Cash are going to this Coinbase account. And then you can even see, if you look real closely over here at the HD path, each time I do it, it increments that. So what this is doing is just deriving a new external change address for every single transaction, basically. We have code already working where you can click on one of these and drill down into it. You can see its transaction history. You can send transactions between these. We're working on that right now. The intention is to make this a full BIP44 wallet, which works as a development thing and which can also connect to the real network. You can see that each time I do it, it increments the block count over here. And then if you go over to blocks, you can see that there are now 16 blocks. They only have one transaction each. If you drill down, you can see the block hash when it was mined. It only has one output, of course, because it is a Coinbase. And then you can see the lock script is typical pay-to-pub key hash and all of this. So there's still a lot of work to do here. The vision is pretty big for this. I think that there's going to be a huge win whenever developers are able to do everything locally and quick and responsive. I think perhaps the biggest body of work in getting version 1.0 out of the entire BitBox framework remains in the HTTP request side of this. It's all there. It supports 100% of it. It's just some of it's returning stub data. So there's still that, but this does work. Another thing is the conversion tool. So everybody needs a good conversion tool. Right now, the one I had been using before BitBox was Trezor, but they don't support cache adders. So you'll notice if you paste in a cache adder, it'll give you legacy. If I come back here and I get an extended private xpriv, you can see that if I paste in an xpriv, it's going to generate the cache adder. It's going to give me legacy base 58 check. It gives me a private key and width. It gives me an xpriv, and it gives me an xpub. and you'll get any subset of these depending on which one you paste in. So for example, if I come back here and I paste in a extended public key, you'll see it'll give me cache adder, legacy base 58 check, and xpub. So there's that. Very convenient. It's an incredibly common part of my workflow every day for somebody to give me a base 58 check address, for me to drop it in here, generate this QR code, pull out my Bitcoin.com iOS wallet, scan that, and send them some Bitcoin Cash. I do that very, very, very often. So if you're looking for a conversion tool, this is your one. All right, next we have the Sign and Verify tool. Also incredibly useful to prove ownership over an address or some funds, or to prove that somebody else has it. So you can paste in an address, hello Bitcoin Cash Fund, and it'll create a signature. You can then verify that the person who created it did in fact do it. You can see if I change a single letter of this, it's not going to verify. Same thing if I change the signature or the address. This works for legacy base 58 check as well as cache adder. You can sign it in cache adder and verify it in legacy and vice versa. Incredibly, incredibly useful. Again, all this is open source, so you can check all this out, see how all this works. You're able to import and export the entire state of this. We'll remove this when this becomes a production app, but right now we have this. We're using Redux under the hood, which is a framework for managing state in React apps. And this app has a lot of state, so you can share this with other people. Basically, if you've got a whole app and you're debugging and you're creating addresses and wallets and you're not quite sure what's happening, you can export your state, share it. Another person can import it into their BitBox. Their entire BitBox will mimic yours, and you can help debug. Like I said, when this becomes a production app, that's not something that'll be there because we don't want to make it that easy for people to share their wallets. But for debugging, it's very useful. Finally, for BitBox GUI, you can configure it in many ways. You can create as many BIP44 accounts as you want. It gets a little slow if you create like 100 or something, but you can do it. It creates 10 by default. You can change the amount of entropy from 128 bits all the way up to 256 bits and create mnemonics of 12, 15, 18, 21, and 24 words. You can do them in 8 different languages, as I mentioned. You can create your own custom mnemonics, and it will also validate them. So you can see when I type in a random gibberish, it says, oh, that's not in the word list. Did you mean address? And it won't let me restart. So it actually will confirm that you have a valid mnemonic before it will even allow you to restart. So for example, if I copy and paste over the one that BitBox generated for us, which of course is valid, it's going to say valid. You can create your own HD path. By default, we use BIP44 semantics because that's the way wallets interoperate. If you, for some reason, have a different trip, feel free to rock that here. You can use passwords. So the flow goes entropy to mnemonic, mnemonic to root seed to masternode to HD child derivation. And the mnemonic to the root seed step can have an optional password, and that's when you get like this astronomical number of outcomes, like I think I said last time, 2 to the 513 or 512. It's very, very big. And then, of course, you can display everything in cache adder or legacy, and you can do everything on the testnet or mainnet. So, for example, if I restart it with French mnemonic and 10, let me see here. There we go. So Chinese mnemonic and legacy. I didn't change the derivation path, but I think you get what I'm going. So BitBox GUI, a lot here to dig in. We can go back over it later. So the final bit is, I think I got about 20 minutes left. I was hoping to go over a few more code samples I was going to copy and paste in, but right now I just want to knock out this Hello World app to give you a sense of what it actually looks like, to stub out our Scaffold app, to create it, and to do all those things. So let's do that real quick. Let me switch over my camera to my terminal. Okay, so you can see my terminal. This was when we were last here. We were on this remote box. We don't need this anymore, so I'll get rid of that in a minute. So now I want to say BitBox new www.hello Bitcoin Cash fund.cache, and I want to have it be a React scaffold. And so you can see it says BitBox scaffolding React app into www.hellobcf.cache, and it did it. So now we say cd www.bcf cache, and let's just run npm install and npm start to give you a sense of the Scaffold React app and what it looks like. So as I mentioned before, this is a very basic BIP44 wallet. It's kind of the same code you've seen me show off several times here. It does that exact same workflow I've shown, where it creates a mnemonic and then the root seed, the master node, and then derives the BIP44 accounts and the 10 external change addresses. So it's a good place for people to sort of get started. And it also does the one-to-one. Real quick, so BitBox does one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many, many-to-one pay-to-pub key hash transactions. It can also do null data, op-return outputs. We have templates which can create outputs of pay-to-pub key, pay-to-multisig, and pay-to-script hash. And we also have templates which create those as inputs. The big technical barrier for me before the 15th is I'm unable to properly sign the pay-to-script hash, pay-to-pub key, and pay-to-multisig inputs. So once I have that in place, we already have all the opcodes turned on in our script class, and you can create custom scripts. So that's what I'm hoping to get in place by the 15th. If anybody can help with that, I'm using Bitcoin JS-lib under the hood. Very, very awesome library and set of developers. There's a forked version of it for Bitcoin Cash. If anybody has worked with that in the past, I can pay you for your time, and I would love to sync with you. So anyway, so now we have really quickly ran that app, and it created this little hello world. Let me show you what it looks like. So it created this same sort of UI you've seen before. We have hello BitBox, and it creates a 256-bit mnemonic, the exact same UX we've seen before. So now what we want to do is we want to kind of make this a little bit looking good for this hackathon. So let's close it. Let's open this in Atom. I need to allow you guys to see Atom, so give me 1 second. And one more thing, I gotta scale it down because for some reason they blast it out when you first start. Okay, so here we go. This is our very, very basic app. I'm going to really quickly just move through some notes I have that should be able to make this look good. So the first thing I want to do is I actually want to CD into the public directory, and I want to get the Bitcoin Cash Fund's logo, because we're going to use their logo real quick. So I did that. You can see I CD'd public and wget their logo and then renamed it logo.jpg. And I want to actually do the same thing for their favicon. So I'm going to remove our favicon, wget their favicon, and then boom. So now we've got basically the assets for their site. We want to very quickly go to, 1 second, I apologize, app CSS here. And get their awesome branding color and throw that in there. We want to go over to app.js and come down here and change it to say BCF, Bitcoin Cash Fund. We want to change the logo completely to point to the one I just .jpg. Is there anything else I need to do here? Do I need to change anything about this? Yes, I want to change the title. Now let's try switch over to iTerm and run npm start. Might get an error, not sure. All right, cool. So I will now switch over to Chrome, where you can see we created this. So we really quickly skinned our little Hello World app with their branding. You can see it's a Chrome bug. Right now you see that it doesn't have the favicon. If I paste this over into another browser, it'll show up. The favicon is there. I should be able to open this and prove. Yeah, so there it is. I don't know why Chrome does that in incognito mode. Not sure about that. But so now we have this little app. This all works. Nice job. So what if we actually wanted to deploy this to the world? Okay, there's a couple steps. Let me switch over to iTerm again. Sorry, I'm still learning how this works. All right, so from here, we want to run npm run build. And what this is going to do is run Webpack, and it's going to compile all of our Sass and high-level JavaScript into lower-level JavaScript, and it's going to create this build directory. There's a couple little boilerplate things I got to do here real quick. I can explain them later. Basically, we need to create an empty, a brand new Git row. Pardon me. We need to create a brand new Git repo, and we need to copy over a very lightweight Express app, which is going to allow our single-page React app to accept incoming requests. Then another thing we got to do is copy over some assets. Give me 1 second. I'm doing this off screen. So we want to copy over our public directory, the logo, the favicon, and the index.html. Got that. We want to now open the index.html, and we want to add a script at the bottom. This is all very much boilerplate. We're working on a couple different scaffolds, and in theory, a lot of this will be handled for you, but I'm just kind of showing you how this works right now. So in theory, we just created our bundled app, and this is ready to be deployed. So I'm literally just going to commit it, and now I'm going to say Heroku create. And now I want to say, so that creates a Heroku app, and now I want to rename it. So our app is called Fathomless Caverns 57,000. We don't want that. So let's rename this to www.hello.bcf. So now we should be able to say git push production master. Might be a bug, might be something. Let's just roll with this. Live coding. What's the worst that could possibly happen, right? Huh. Okay, so it appears to have detected that it's a Node.js app. It's deploying it. All that is good. Everything appears to be good. And it appears to have deployed it. Let me go check it in the browser, and then I'll show you. All right, so you can see now up here we have hello bcf.heroku app, and that's cool, but that's not quite what we want. We want to make this look a little bit better. The way we're going to do that, give me 1 second, I got to sign into this account. I swear I was signed in and it kicked me out while I was talking. We're going to actually add DNS and add a domain. I think I can still get this done in 10 minutes, so let me sign into this account real quick. I'm doing it off screen. Thank you for your patience. I apologize. I really was signed into this 1 second ago and it kicked me out, of course. So this is off screen. I won't be able to show you, but I'm adding a C name DNS record basically on my Namecheap account. But before we do that, let's go back over to, let me make sure you're looking at the right thing. I apologize. Taking me back to iTurn. Got it. So here I want to say Heroku domains add, and I'm adding www.hellobcf.cache, and the app is www.hellobcf-cache. Is that right? Yep. So now it's going to add, I couldn't find that app, I apologize. What is it called? www.hellobcf, sorry. So this is the Heroku workflow. Again, we're going to create something very similar to this entire workflow with BitBox Cloud. So now it's saying I need to add this as a CNAME record to my Heroku DNS, and I'll do that now off screen. So basically, I'm just creating a CNAME for www. I'm pasting in that value, and I'm having the time to live be automatic. All right. So now we should be able to say www.hellobcf.cache. Yes, Heroku domains. Gotta wait. Hello. Dash hello dash BCF. And the domain is boom. So it's going to do its thing. Shouldn't take long. And basically what it's doing is it's going to set this up to where when you go to www.hello.bcf.cache, you're going to see the little app that we just created. And if that doesn't lag out too long while it's doing this, I will then add an SSL search so you can just get a sense of like, oh, I see, that's the entire flow. Got it. And it's lagging on me. This is Heroku's DNS thing lagging. This isn't really on our end. And I'll still wait. We've got 10 more minutes. I do want to see this finished, so we'll see how it works out. If not, I'll post all this stuff up later, and you guys will be able to see this domain live in a little bit. I'm not sure why it's lagging, by the way. It might be waiting for the DNS to do its thing on let's see if I can set up a cert while we wait. Heroku Certs. Oh yeah, one thing you got to do is you've got to ramp up your app. So this is www-hello-bitcoin cache fund. And then next you want to say Heroku Certs enable for www-hello-bcf. And one of the amazing things is last year a nonprofit called Let's Encrypt was launched, and they wanted to make it super easy and free to encrypt the entire web, and they got a deal going on with Heroku. So you can, if you use a certain class of Dino, not their basic tier, but the one right above it, you can basically enable this cert thing, and you will they'll handle your SSL certs for you. It's pretty convenient. You don't have to worry about the domain, or you don't have to worry about it renewing or anything like that. I'm really not sure. There we go. So that says done. Got it. I don't know why I'm seeing that. Is it a cache thing? Let me try a different browser. Let's do Heroku Certs. BCF. Thanks for your patience, anybody who's still around. This is the final bit. So it says DNS Verified. So it's setting up the cert now. So there's a couple commands we run. You just run this command until it tells you that it has completed, and then at that point you will in fact have an SSL cert. And let's see. So yeah, that'll take a couple minutes as well. For what it's worth, I'm still getting the, I'll show you guys what I'm getting just so you know, so I'm not hiding it here. This is what I'm still getting, Namecheap's placeholder page. Even though it says that the domain is set up, it might just be some weird DNS cache thing. But just, this is what I was building earlier. So it does work. You can see test.hello.bcf.cache, and it's got HTTPS. So once this works, once this DNS clears or whatever's happening, we'll be able to do HTTPS as well as soon as this cert is done being set up. And I'll hopefully be able to show you what that looks like as well. It says DNS Verified. So yeah, anyway, we still have 5 minutes left. I'll kind of just tinker on this and see if it comes together. I haven't had the YouTube channel open, so if people have been asking questions, I apologize. I was not able to basically focus on it while I was working, so I will sweep back over afterwards and I'll address any questions. I want to try something real quick. What are you guys seeing? Let me show you my terminal, just out of curiosity. If we do a non-www domain, let's see what that looks like. So if I say Heroku domains add, like wow. Nope, sorry. I'm just interested if it's something to do with that www, because see, they put a placeholder DNS on it for half an hour of time to live, I mean. So if I add a new C record, a C name record, and I add it as WOW dot, and I add that, let's see if that worked. Give it a second to do its thing. Okay, so that did work for what it's worth. If you go to wow.hellobcf.cache, you'll see that that worked. And then if I now say Heroku Certs and I enable, okay. So yeah, this is the final step, is adding a cert. And again, you can see if you go to the test one that I had it working in the full example earlier. I don't know if I have time to get this working in the last 3 minutes, but I will try. Let's see what that says now. And I'm going to switch you over to Chrome so you can see. Got a lot of windows open, I'm sorry. So like I said, there's test with HTTPS. I'm still waiting on the DNS to get set up for www. Not exactly sure why it's lagged. I think if I had to guess, it has to do with the fact that www CNAME has a time to live of 30 minutes by default, and maybe it hasn't flushed out or something. And then yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, it's been about an hour. That was a lot. I didn't get to cover everything I wanted to. There's a lot more. More than anything, I wanted to give people a general sense of what it is like. Let me switch over to my webcam. I'm sorry. Hey, everybody. So yeah, that was an hour. I just wanted to give everybody a general sense of what the actual workflow was, what it's like to, you know, set up a fresh Ubuntu instance, install all the dependencies from scratch. What does the command line utility look like? What do the paper wallet generator and our proxy services, our REST service, our marketplace, what is our cloud going to look like? What does it look like when you run the console? BitBox.js, we talked about creating new apps. We talked about scaffolding apps in React and Angular and Node and Next and Vue. We showed how to tweak an app to add their brand, and we showed how to deploy it to Heroku and ultimately add a .cache domain and HTTPS. So I think in general that was a super high-level overview of what it's like to work with BitBox. A couple plugs. We have a hackathon coming on the 15th for the network upgrade. It's probably going to be based in San Francisco again, but it's going to be open to the public. We have 2 Bitcoin Cash prizes to give away. Please come and hack and win them. Let's create amazing things. And finally, thank you to the Bitcoin Cash Fund. Really, so grateful to you guys. You're awesome. We have a BitBox chat room on their Discord at ambassador.cash. We're there hacking day and night. So please join us. Let's set this off. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. I'm super grateful. Talk to you next time. Cheers.